Hello, everyone. A warm welcome to Women Together. I'm back for those of you who were here last week. I will say that for those of you who are new, welcome. My name is Antoinette, and I'm the host of Women Together. And for those of you who have been with us week after week, you will know that I was unable to be with everyone last week, which made me very sad, but also I really needed to take the compassion for yourself moment as I had a cold, and thankfully it was not COVID, but who knew we could still get colds these days. So a glorious summer cold, but I rested and I'm feeling much better. So thank you all for your kind words and wishes and for giving me that little moment. So for those of you who are new, we gather weekly just to connect with each other and connect with the practice. And we have a wonderful special guest with us who I'll introduce in a few moments, Karina Saltzman, who is joining us. And she's back too, because the last time that she tried to be with us, we had a little issue as well. So glad that we are healthy and able to be here, and really looking forward to Karina joining us today. So as many of you are already doing, we can type just in the chat a little hello, where you're coming from, and I'll read a few out. It's wonderful to be together. And Lisa, yes, keep wearing your mask in crowded areas. Haven't had a cold in over a year. Wonderful to hear that. I got together with family, so I think that was the culprit. But there were also little kids there, so I'm glad that I'm doing better. But I highly agree and recommend what you share, Lisa. There's still quite a bit going around. So we've got a number of us coming in from all over. So welcome to all from Manchester, Vermont, it looks like, hot Reno, Wisconsin, Ossining, New York. We are also experiencing a heat wave on this side of the country. Ellicott City, Maryland, Manila, the Philippines, welcome. New Jersey, Columbus, Ohio, suburban Philadelphia, Switzerland. So a warm welcome from hot New York. This is Lenape land. It's known as Cortland Manor. We've got a few from Manchester, Vermont, hot and humid Toronto, Huntington Beach, California. Wonderful. So there are many of us coming in from across the country: North Dakota, land of the Lakota, Bethesda, Maryland. Record-breaking heat. Yes, we've seen record-breaking heat in Canada, especially, I think 2 days in a row, the highest temperatures that they've ever experienced. So as much as COVID has been a time of disruption, we're also experiencing a moment of disruption in our world. And there are a lot of changes that are coming with that. So we kind of hold strong in this moment of disruption, and really, a few weeks ago we held with our partner organization, the Presencing Institute, a really beautiful event. It was a global forum, and it was a moment to look at the decade of transformation. So if this moment is the decade of transformation, we asked the question, who are we going to be in this decade of transformation? Not just what are we going to do, but how do we show up to this moment? So as much as we're talking about the weather, we're also realizing what it means to be in place, and what it means to be in place at this particular time on the planet. So wow, Patricia, earthquake yesterday in Berkeley, California. So yeah, we're all really coming from all over and joining together to share in one another's joys and struggles and triumphs, and all of the challenges that we each face, and to just get a little reminder that we're resilient and that we can come back to ourselves. Today's topic will be on deepening relationships, which is really important right now when we're going back, many of us, into these interactions with each other. And for those of us in different parts of the world, maybe not quite yet, but how do you deepen these interactions wherever you are, and with whoever you may find yourself with, and with those who you really do want to be surrounding yourself with. So that's what we'll focus on today. And I'll start us off as I usually do with just a moment of stillness and just landing here in this space together in this place. And I notice that for me, I start running and I start going out, out, out and connecting and doing all these things. And I just need a moment to just come back to myself, just reconnect, realign, really just find the vertical plane. So, really connecting mind, heart, will, that little space just above below the belly button, the gut, that little place where we have courage, just connecting into that place as well. So I'll ring our little bell, but just connecting into those three places, connecting to the vertical, connecting to the spine, and just following the breath as it moves in and out, but also as it moves up and down the spine. So I'll give us a moment of stillness. I'll ring the sound of the singing bowl to bring us into that moment of stillness, and I'll ring the sound again to bring us back together. So thank you all for taking that little minute together. I find that it just gives me a moment to reconnect with myself and reconnect with my own body and just a little moment of presence. So wonderful to be all together. And right now, I'm going to introduce Karina Saltzman, who I feel like we've been circling around each other in a lot of different ways with her connection to Wisdom 2.0 and other arenas that we've been kind of dancing in. Her work in women's leadership as a licensed therapist. She's really been working with women leaders to help them develop relationship skills, define success on their own terms, and bring relational intelligence to therapists, physicians, coaches, and directors of learning and development. So she leads a number of different programs in various different ways, and it's just a joy to be connected with you, Karina, and to have you here with us today and sharing. So Karina will lead us into our tiny practice and or a few practices and move us into breakouts. So I turn it over to you, Karina, and thank you again for being with us.
Yeah, thanks so much. Hi, everybody. It's really an honor and pleasure to be here. You know, Antoinette, I think I met you way back at, it must have been a women's leadership conference. And so I've been following Eileen Fisher, and I had the opportunity to interview her at a conference, and then the work that you all are doing. So it feels like a real honor to be here. And I just want to say thank you for you and your team and the work you're bringing to these groups. It's really important, especially now. So I know this year for many of us has been one hell of a year in terms of our relationships. I've seen many people who, you know, within my family and my circles that feel incredibly challenged. And then other pockets of people who are introverts who are like really happy. And yet we're all challenged in some new ways around our relationships. So, what I would like to do today is to just share some about how professionally and personally I got into this work, and to talk some about the skills and the tools around deepening relationship. And then the second half, we're going to put you all together to have your own experience and be able to dive into your definition and what's happening with you around deepening your own relationships and how you're feeling about that. Before we dive in, what I'd like to do is just share a practice. I don't know that it's a practice, but it's a way of communicating via Zoom. So I can see some of you, and it's the finger wiggle. So just do this with me so I can see you all. Thank you. Great. So if I say something that you resonate with, or if at the end of this, when we open it up for shares and questions, and someone in the group says something that you resonate with, this helps me to go, oh, okay, I can see out there that there's other people who are like, yeah, me too. And for the person who's speaking, it helps them to see there's other people out there that also may have the same question or have some resonance around it. And it's just a way of us connecting together. So there may be times I ask a question and you could do this if that's true for you. So professionally, I became interested in deepening relationship because I had a therapy practice at the time where people were coming in to see me with things like maybe somebody was having an affair in their relationship. They were having conflict with their boss. They were dealing with lots of anxiety. But a lot of times it came back to something was happening in relationship that was twisting them up and spinning them out. So for many of us, when our primary core relationships, whether that's with the people we work with or my husband, when those start to feel conflictual, we start to get scared and we get thrown off our game, and we spend a lot of time thinking about it. So what I started to notice is when people's relationships got better, they became happier. Their anxiety decreased. They didn't really need me anymore. It's like they had created a container for themselves to be held. And at that point, I was like, oh, this is the work I want to support people to do, is to learn how to create their own positive quality relationships and be able to thrive in those without always holding space for somebody's, but teaching them how to hold space for each other. So that's the professional side of it. And I actually just started becoming obsessed with how do we do quality relationship? So I did some trainings out on my own and went to work with the Integral group in Boulder and some of the people who were really leading this work. And what I started to notice for myself was that I became less afraid of people. That I didn't even realize I was scared of people, but somewhere I was scared of people. And all of a sudden they became more friendly. And the weird thing that happened for me personally was I started to put myself out there in new ways because people weren't so scary. So I started to be able to speak in front of people and not worry about being judged as much. Or being like, yeah, people are going to judge me, but that's also their stuff. So I'm not going to not do my thing. And people who knew me were like, what? You're speaking in front of 500 people? It just doesn't. I'm like, I know. I became less afraid of people. And now you all seemed more warm and inviting. And also, I think that it's not like it's an end game, this practice, it's a practice that we continue to do over and over again, and that I continue to practice because we're rerouting the nervous system in a lot of ways. We're finding ways to rewire our brain and our neurobio brain in a way that creates a positive force of relating to others. So I'm just going to take a breath there. I know that's a lot of information. And I think the other thing that I want to say is really the research part of this is that I found some research that said the main predictive factor of our happiness is the quality of our relationships. Now, there's one caveat to that, which is if you don't have the resources financially to sustain yourself, and there is a certain amount of money you need to make to feel like I'm taken care of. And then really it's quality of relationship that raises, that they said it's the only predictive factor that raises our level of happiness. And that really caught my attention. It's like so many people are right. We're trying to maybe, oh, the Tesla will make me happier. That new job will make me happier. But really what the research is showing is like, actually it's quality relationship that is increasing our happiness. And yet, how do we put our attention on that? And what kind of attention are we putting on that? And how do we do it? Becomes a question. So I'm going to talk some today about sort of the how of the skills before we send you all into an experience yourselves. But the other research that I wanted to mention that I found kind of fascinating was that, in business partnerships, the reason business partnerships break up is 68% of the time, it's because there's a conflict between the partners. And those of you who've put together collaborative relationships know how much work that takes. And I've been there myself of putting together a collaborative relationship that fell apart due to conflict. And it was quite a learning curve. So there's just the practical part of doing relationship that has real world outcome for us. The other piece, the other person that did a lot of work around this is Daniel Goldman. And he studied doctors and legal disputes for doctors. And the main reason was that the patients were not being heard, that they felt like the doctor's attention was not on them. They were distracted. Their quality and contact was not there for the patient to really feel like they were being well cared for. And then there was something happened out of that then led to a lawsuit. So I just bring those things up to say there's so many practical applications to doing relationship well and benefit to doing it well. So some of these skills that I want to go into for a few minutes here, some of the skills to building, I would say, high quality relationships is one would be curiosity. Can I get into a state of curiosity and wonder both about myself, but also about the other person? The other one I like to call transparency with discretion. Can I be open and transparent in different environments, but being able to gauge the environment? The next one is like really powerfully listening to others. And I know that that's something that this group has done some work around. There's also being able to read another's emotional cues and nonverbal cues. So as you're tuning into other people, can you feel into the cues that they're giving you? I think the last one I want to mention is just managing our own triggers and reactivity. So when we're triggered, we lose like all capacity to really be relational. And it happens to all of us. It happens to me, relational brain just gets knocked out when we're triggered. And part of the work is to really be able to notice when the trigger is happening and be able to sort of breathe through it and try to stay in a state of open receptivity and not, sometimes we'll get taken by it, but can we come back to the moment and notice what's happening? Because I think part of the beauty of deepening relationship is what we're trying to do is for those of us that have had relational fields that we grew up in that maybe weren't so resonant, or the attachment style of our families were a little off, we're really trying to create a positive weave of rerouting that for ourselves. And that takes a lot of practice and a lot of time, but it can be done with a close friend. It can be done with a new love relationship. It can be done with a neighbor. It can be done with a colleague. Like, it doesn't need to happen with just a primary relationship. But I think this creating a positive relational field can be done in many, many places. So I just want to open that to you all too. So I think that's been about 10 minutes. I know I could talk on this topic for a long time because I'm super passionate and interested in it. But at the same time, I don't want to overload you all as well with too much information. So our next step, I'm pretty sure, Antoinette, is to move into the writing exercise at this point. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to set that up. So we have 3 questions here in the writing prompt, and you'll have 5 minutes to just be able to go inside and self-reflect and to write. So I'll let you know what the 3 questions are. They are, why do I want to deepen relationship? Why do I want to deepen relationship? And the second one is, why don't I want to deepen relationship? Because there's often a part that's like, no, people will depend on me, they'll need me, whatever the story is that we hold. So why don't I want to deepen relationship? And the last question is, over the past year in COVID, what have you learned about yourself and your relationship? And they'll be in I see somebody's putting them in the thread as well. So if you get lost, you can go to that. Over the past year in COVID, what have you learned about yourself and your relationships? And feel free to start writing. So bringing your writing to a close and coming back to the larger group. Antoinette, I was gonna just do the setup for them to move into small groups, but I know the YouTubers, I don't know if you want to speak to them or if you want me to, but
Yeah, I mean, I can just say for those of us on YouTube, if there's anything that you want to share in the comments on YouTube, feel free. And if you're in Zoom, Karina's going to move us into breakouts. And the one thing I just want to share as we go into breakouts is just a reminder to all of us to really have compassion for each other and to remember that we could be having a day or a month or a year, and that in this moment we're just really making space for everyone to be able to share with each other. So really just coming from a place of that human goodness,
yeah,
as we move with the prompt that Karina is going to share with us.
great. Okay, so we are going to move into small groups. For some of you might have 3, so you'll have to navigate the time, but you will have 20 minutes together with the 4 of you. And I'm going to ask that somebody, when you get into the room, somebody's the designated timer. So decide first who is the timer. We're going to do, and this will also be in the chat thread, but we're going to do 2 rounds of questions with 2 minutes each per person. And then we're going to do another round of a different question, 2 minutes each per person. And then we're going to do a 4-minute debrief at the very end after everybody has gotten their time. Again, this will be in the chat too if you lose that. So for the person speaking, your job is to really allow yourself to get curious about yourself and almost like interested in wondering what's going to come out of your mouth. There is no way to have this polished. Just let yourself discover as the speaker. As the listeners, your job is to really offer gourmet contact. So you're going to give the person your full attention, your full heart, your full presence. This is a very high gift these days in a world where we're bouncing around so much. So please, as the listener, really give this person who's speaking gourmet contact and get curious about them. So we'll move from one person to the next, and then at the very end, in the debrief, you'll have time to reflect how that was for you and share with them how it was to be with them. I'm going to ask that you don't give advice. It's just not that helpful, but you're really more asking curiosity questions or sharing what it was to be with the people that you're with. Okay, so remember, whoever, when you enter in, decide who's timer, 2 minutes each. And the first question you've actually already started. So the first question is, why do I want to deepen relationship? So you can reference what you've already written. And the second question is, what are some ways I keep myself from deepening relationship? And it will also be in the thread. I'm sure a partner will have it written down if you don't. And then at the end, we'll gather up the last bit and have people be able to share, take a few shares from the larger group. So on that note, you will be magically moved into your room of 4 or potentially 3 in the next minute or so.